right.
All right. Well, maybe Carl, you can summarize for our online viewers where we are in the conversation.
Okay, so we've been discussing this project with Renee Myers and Tavia, what's the exact title of the proposals for the record?
Green Jobs Training and Internship Program with Forest Park Conservancy.
Great. So we've had a very in-depth discussion. As I would expect, the committee members asked a lot of really probing questions, as did the subcommittee. And I think Renee handled them quite well, at least from my perspective. The other great thing that occurred, these arose in ways we may be able to leverage this relationship even further between this project and ODF and W, potentially with interns working in a different milieu, which would be valuable to them. So we've had a very nice discussion. I think we've reached a point where we're ready to make a decision whether we would recommend this project to the commission. Are there any other comments or questions before we maybe take a poll on that?
And Carl, I have a draft motion that I think captures it, and anyone can change that as they see fit, but I can put that up for you if you want.
All right. Okay, with that on the screen, is there anyone interested in moving forward with this?
I'll go.
Okay.
I move to recommend expenditure from the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund. Oops, it went away. Of up to $325,000 for the project Green Jobs Training and Internship Program, including $130,000 immediately and $195,000 contingent upon the receipt of future restricted donations of $140,000.
Great. Is there a second? Mark, was that a second? I thought you did a thumbs up or something.
Sorry, I second that.
Great. All right, well, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this project? Then all in favor, thumbs up. All right, looking great. Nice. All right. Well, thank you all very much. Oh, okay, Renee, you've been great in this. I really appreciate you being willing to take the time and explain to us. And thank you for the incredible work that you're doing on this project and others. And it's really been a pleasure for me working with you. I want to thank you for that and your willingness to help us out. And I'm also just going to reiterate to this group, the questions you guys asked, I really appreciate them. I appreciate the seriousness that you're taking all of this. It makes me feel even better about what we're doing. So thank you. And let's keep that up. Again, we're setting the tone for the long term. And so with that, I think we're ready to send that on to the commission. And Renee, maybe you and Davia could connect at some point just to make sure we got all the things we need to make that happen accurate.
Yeah.
Carl.
Oh, go ahead, Mauricio.
No, I just saw that Mark has his hand out, so maybe right after you, Renee.
Oh, I was just going to say that if anybody has any further questions, please let me know, or thinking about some harder questions that they might ask that I should be prepared for, that would be really helpful as well. I want to make sure that I come in, or they have anything else that the commission brings up, that I can prepare for that. So yeah. And thank you all very much, and thank you for the questions.
Mark Stern.
Thank you, Renee. Labhart, I believe.
Oh, Mark Labhart. Mark. Oh, Mark. Yeah, sorry, Mark. Your hand's up.
Yeah, my My video is not working, which is probably a blessing to some of you, I'm sure. Just a couple comments. Sounds like a great project, by the way. But because it's a little bit out of the box from what usually comes to us from the OCRF Advisory Committee, I would recommend that Davia, maybe you and Davia, Carl, and Renee, in the staff report that comes to the commission, go into a little bit more detail, kind of a who, what, where, when, and why, so that it might get some of the questions answered ahead of time before the commission, so that they aren't saying, well, what's this? This is different. What's this all about? So maybe put a little more effort into the staff report to make sure that it's covered real well. And then I would recommend that either maybe Carl in the staff report, or Carl even mentioned that the advisory committee is going to take a look at October about putting some criteria on these special projects, so that it looks so the commission gets that impression that there might be other special instructions or projects that come up that the committee might take some action on, and it would be helpful for the committee to put together some criteria for that. And I think that would help the commission too. So just some comments there. Thanks.
Mark, I appreciate that, because honestly, we're going to look to you in a lot of ways to carry this information to them and explain to them, to help clarify it. I unfortunately am not going to be available for that meeting, so it's going to fall to Davia and you, Mark, to communicate about this. But I think in time leading up to it, I might try to reach out to some of the commission members that I know and have a conversation with them about it.
Yeah, maybe Chair Wall, at least so she's aware of it. So for sure.
And along those lines, it's just a reminder to all of you that the commission meetings are public meetings, and there's going to be an opportunity to testify on this exhibit. And so I'll make sure you all are aware of that opportunity. Because it's virtual, you have to sign up in advance. You can't just show up in Salem like you used to be able to do. But I can make sure that opportunity is out there for you all.
I do want to point out, Mark, that while the numbers are bigger here, we've done this exact same thing already with commission, with other projects. So I think we've got the track record, and so I think we are. In fact, that like the funding for the bypass was $60,000. So they've seen this kind of number before, and
you might just mention that in the staff report, Davia, that it's bigger numbers, but we have some track record for this.
Great. All right. Well, with that, Renee, thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate your information. And you're free to go play with the cat I saw in the background back there. And
The cat who thinks they're a dog. Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I will do some more to work on getting it kind of tied more to the Oregon conservation strategy, and even specifically maybe talk about more the, restoration aspect and wildlife. And I can tie that in. So thank you all very much. I really appreciate being invited and for your time. So, and Mauricio, good to see you. Jane and Carl, always great to see you. So thank you.
Okay, great. Well, I think I appreciate everyone taking the time to go through that. And again, that helps. It's a nice, if we're successful with this, and it really gets us down the road. So we'll also have, I hope, a nice working relationship with Meyer and potentially some of these other funders that she's discussed. So it's all part of building the base of what we're trying to do here. And given that, the next part of the agenda, I think Davia just has an outline of some things she was going to present to us about things to think about for this upcoming meeting in October.
And we also need to take a look at the July minutes as part of this agenda, Carl. We can come back around to that at the end. So let me share this, sorry. So as Carl said, we were really, really excited and happy to be planning a in-person meeting here for this advisory committee. Michelle already has all of your travel reimbursement documents ready to go for when that day comes. But as you all heard, the governor postponed reopening of state offices past the September 1st deadline. And we do not have a new date in place for when we will be reopening state offices. So we're going to have to keep being a virtual committee for the time being, and I appreciate all your patience on that. We do have the date for our October meeting is Wednesday, October 6th. And part of the discussion today, I hope we can get some consensus from you all on how long of a virtual meeting is tenable. Sorry, I have a dog invasion as well. My proposal to you all is 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon. Hold on just a second. And I just wanted to get a gut reaction from folks. The longest we've done was 2 hours in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. Is 3 and 3 too much, or are you all willing to do that?
What about like a 2-3 split? No,
How long's the break?
As in 3 sessions of 2 hours each?
no, I just meant, yeah, like do like a 2 or 3 hour morning and then finish up with 2 hours. But I didn't know if that's not enough time or that kind of thing.
Davia, how long were you planning on doing a split, like a break in the middle?
An hour and a half or 2 hours, probably.
If it's a 2 hour break, I mean, I'll speak for myself, but 3 and 3 is fine for me.
Yeah, I'd say that if we can keep the break at the very least an hour, or at least, I think whatever chunks of time seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, I'm good with it too. The 4 hour blocks get really long for me, but I can handle a 3.
Yeah, I would never want to push us to 4.
And we certainly could make it, I think it'd be smart to do 3 in the morning, take a break, and then schedule for 3, but hopefully get done quicker.
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds good. Thank you all for that feedback. I was so excited to have that time in person with some sort of informal chit chat where you weren't all sitting in your chairs. And so we're going to have to try to cover this as best we can virtually. So what I've got up here is a list of subjects that it's time for us to start digging in on. And I put a couple of categories out there. The first being committee structure and function, and recognizing that you all were appointed by the governor to the seats that you're in through January 2022, because that was as long as the committee had authority to exist. At the October Fish and Wildlife Commission, we will be bringing forward proposed rules to create a 4-year term for members of this advisory committee, now that the sunset has been removed. And so we'll talk about that, and we can all talk offline about that one-on-one, how much longer you would like to continue to serve on the advisory committee, if you want to do another 4 years, or if you'd rather do 2 for a total of 4. So we can talk a little bit about that next time. And then the other thing is that I have been working on the Oregon Conservation Recreation Fund as other duties as assigned to my normal position for the last 2 years. And it's been so fun and great. But now that the sunset has been removed, we're going to be working on adding a full-time staff person who will be staff to the committee and cover all of the grant management and committee management for you all. And so we don't have a timeline on that yet. That was just sort of a placeholder for me to let you know that, and hopefully we'll have more details in October. We'll talk about the fundraising campaign and where we are on funds raised and different opportunities that we see on the horizon. And I think maybe some dedicated time for that. And then the monitoring conversation that we started a little bit in July, talking about the 5% monitoring. We are starting to get reports in from our first round of grants, which is exciting. And one that I'll share all with you this afternoon from People of Color Outdoors. They did their camping weekend on the coast a couple weeks ago, and we've got a ton of really great pictures from that project coming in, which is wonderful. We can talk more about that in October. And then I think the bulk of the meeting really needs to be about an expenditure framework for the future. So the expenditure framework that the committee is operating under now was built with the idea of we're getting small chunks of money at a time in, we're going to send that out as fast as we can. And now that the committee exists for the long term with no sunset date, we can really start thinking about a more regular process and order for how the committee makes expenditures. I think grantees like that because they know, however you do it, June 1st is always the deadline for an OCRF grant, for example. I think that grantees would like that. And then also thinking about those larger grant opportunities now that there's actual funds available to the program. So I was thinking that could take the form of some information sharing and then some discussion time. And the information I was thinking about was going back to the Oregon Conservation Strategy, the recommendations of the Governor's Task Force on Outdoor Recreation, some project ideas that ODF&W has for big investments that might come up, and looking at some of ODF&W's other grant-making programs to look for opportunities to work with them. And those are the Restoration and Enhancement Board and the Access and Habitat Board. They are both funded by small surcharges on licenses. So when you buy a fishing license or a hunting license, $3 or $4 of that goes into these accounts, and they support fishing access or hunting access in most cases. But they do get projects that are about diversifying participation in those kind of activities and things like that. So we'll bring some of the members of those boards and the staff in to talk to us about how they're structured. And then I think set the stage for updating our framework. There's a lot here. And so I want to hear from you all if there's other subjects you want to cover at that October meeting or things, ways to frame some of these things. And then we'll use this to put together that agenda for you.
Chris Hager.
Yeah, the one thing I just wanted to make sure that within the updating or within the expenditure framework that we do look at some type of, or at least talk about some type of framework for these type of projects that we just funded or that we're going to be recommending. And so yeah.
Mauricio.
I was just agreeing with Chris. I think Kelly had her hand up though.
Oh, you're clapping there.
Nice. I know. I'm trying to figure out everybody's hands. Chris still has a question. I don't know. I think it goes away. No, I don't know. We're still Zooming. Here we are a year and a half later. We don't know what we're doing. I had only 2 clarifications for the things we're already doing. So it's not hopefully adding to the plate. But while we're talking about these larger scale projects, is there a minimum investment level? Like I'm thinking about, if somebody came to you and they're like, we want to give you $30,000 versus $100,000 or something else, do we have a sort of a minimum ask, or is it more about impact and that kind of thing? So I would just want to talk about that at some point within that large scale project. And then on R&E, we used to tap R&E all the time, the Restoration Enhancement Program. It was an awesome program. And then they had gotten to where they backed down to mostly funding ODFW projects, which is totally fine. But I appreciate if you guys invite some folks in from the R&E board, because it's a good board and I've been really familiar with them, but a little clarification on if they have a, are they still going to be mostly focused on funding ODFW projects or on funding other projects? So that would just be a clarification in my head.
Kelly, just what we did when we started this, we did come up with a $10,000 minimum for restricted donations that we would match, but that's subject to change. And again, those are the kind of things we would discuss.
No, that makes sense. Thanks, Carl.
Yeah, that is just because of the legwork that it requires. It had to be worthwhile. But
cool.
I think we've got a nice one. We have this small project. Well, now it's $20,000, but these smaller projects across the state, that program has been very successful. We certainly can decide to continue to do that. We can decide to do the kind of projects that allow for these large donations with the promise of a 30% match. That could be part of our portfolio of things to do. We could be much more focused. These are just things for you to think about. For instance, I'll just use this purely as an example. Say, okay, we're going to spend $100,000 on Western pond turtles and have a fund that we will solicit Western pond turtle projects, or white-headed woodpecker, or a specific type of habitat that we elect to focus on. I'm not proposing those. I'm just saying those are the kind of things we as a group could elect to do. I think we do want to do this broad-based thing where we're sort of spreading money around the state. But now that we're starting to get into what you could really consider to be real money, we want to be strategic and focused and really try to make an impact. And so those are the kind of things I want you all thinking about between now and then. Kaylin, and then Mauricio.
Thank you. And if my audio messes up, that's why the webcam has been off, just because my internet's been slow today. But this conversation around the ODFW grant programs made me think that it might actually be worthwhile, might be too big of a task in one meeting to take a slightly broader look actually at the half dozen grant programs that the Parks and Recreation Department has. And OWEB, Travel Oregon as well, has been funding a lot of outdoor recreation work over the last couple of years from tourism grants, just to do, Carl, exactly what you're saying, just that funding discipline. I thought it might, like, I live in this world, so I can kind of see where OCRF stands in the mix, but even if we only spend a couple minutes on each of those meetings, not looking for projects exactly, but just to understand the state funding mix, to me, that seems like that would be time well spent. So, and I can help to organize or, you know, prod my state colleague peers to come to the meeting, present on some of those things.
Davia, then could you work with Kaylin and make that happen? Thank you, Kaylin. Mauricio?
Thank you, Carl, and thank you, Kaylin, for that. I think it would be great if we, you know, when I speak about OCRF, I often use the word, you know, kind of bridging the gap in some opportunities that may not be there for organizations and projects. And so if we avoid redundancy, I think that would be fantastic. So if there's a filter for us to be able to do that, would be great. What I wanted to say before is something that you brought up, Carl, which is maybe also worth discussing on our October meeting, which is what do we do with the projects that didn't make the cut on our last round? Is there a way to reach back to them? How do we go about acknowledging their effort, re-inviting them? Is there a way that some of those applications can be revisited? So maybe something to consider as well. How do we go back to those who showed interest before and have them engaged in this new ask?
Thank you, Mauricio. Did you write that down, Davia? We got a long list of things to talk about. Anybody else have any comments about the meeting? And I think just so everybody knows, I Figus Zis Rosinji GK down at the bottom there is Mark Stern, I believe.
Yeah, hi, that's me. Sorry.
That's Mark Stern in Swahili, if I understand correctly.
I just saw that he sent out that in the chat. So, okay. So Davia, is there anything else about the meeting? I mean, we do have a date, right?
Yes, Wednesday, October 6th. And if you all could save pretty much the whole day, and as we talked about, we'll identify a window, maybe 9 to noon and 2 to 4:30, maybe something like that. But we'll hammer that out in the next week or so and get the invite out there to you all. And that triggers a conversation about scheduling. As I said, we're going to have to switch back to virtual. And in June, I started a list of people's standing conflicts, and I got a response from Kelly and Maret, and that's it. So as of now, we can just schedule based on their availability. But if folks would let me know when you have standing conflicts, and that's just sort of like a, you know, for example, Maret's teaching Friday mornings and Kelly has a standing meeting on the first Monday of the month. If there's those kind of things that you guys can let me know. And then after our before our October meeting, we can kind of lay out at least the rest of this year, if not also 2022, to get ahead of that and be able to save those dates on people's calendars. As we've been trying to get to that regular meeting this whole time, we haven't quite got there yet. And then the other thing that is not on the agenda that probably should be is just a little brief information about the announcement we sent out today about the next opportunity. Do you want me to do that, Carl?
What's that?
The current grant round that started today. Do you want me to? And so I will share my screen for that as well. So at our meeting in July, we the committee agreed that they wanted to open up quickly another opportunity for small grants because it has been a full year since our last opportunity for small grants. And using the same review criteria and application form and everything, because we didn't have time to make changes to it. So that went live today, August 30th. And so the details on that are here, and that we went live today. The deadline's October 24th. And so that will mean that we're going to ask you to save time in November and early December to review those projects when they come in. And that will look for a date in December for you all to meet and recommend your slate of projects. And as a reminder of the decision that was made in July, it's expecting that you'll choose about 15 projects that have a maximum of $20,000. And then that we will open another opportunity in November that's worth about $50,000 for those small grants. And that was what you decided back in July. And we can work on that and get ready for that in the next few weeks. But this was kind of our opportunity to get rolling while these broader conversations about the long term are happening. So you should have the announcement in your inbox, and I will forward around the press release that ODF&W did today. But it all starts with this letter from Carl that sort of outlines what it looks like this time around. And all of this is on the committee's webpage. And let me know if you don't have a link to that.
Okay, well, I think we're close to the end of the agenda. Darby, do you have anything else?
Just if folks have looked at the July minutes and we want to finalize those, we could also hold that over to October if you want.
Let's just hold that over. We can do it then with these minutes. I do want to point out something that I think all of you already know. As Davia pointed out, we're starting to look for a full-time staff person to help. Davia is going to stay engaged, but not do as much of the day-to-day work that she's had to do. I want to point out that the other boards that ODF&W have 2 staff persons to do them. And Davia did all of this plus her other job by herself. And we really owe her a lot of gratitude for the work that she did. I just found out today that all those other places have 2 full-time staff members to run their programs. And so like Marie just
So wait, Carl. So does that mean that now Davia is gonna leave everything else and just work exclusively with us? I thought that was the announcement.
That's what I was hoping to announce.
Okay, good.
It's going to be the brains behind the outfit there, and better.
I'll just do the fun stuff like deciding, what priorities are and things like that, and none of the paperwork.
We're getting all these grants out the door that she had to do. And speaking of that, Davia, for the next meeting, could you put together a report about how everything all fell out last year? You did that a little bit at the last meeting, but I think it would be good to revisit that about where the money went, the projects that we funded, and I think that's a good way to get into the meeting. Okay, with that being said, I'm sorry, I apologize for the delay, and we did work it out, thank goodness. I mean, amazing texting people and emailing them, and we all ended up together. It's really, while it is a pain, it's wonderful that we can do it. And good luck to everybody as this COVID thing persists. I mean, we're going to get through it. Just look at the graph of India, where the Delta virus started and was a horrible deal for a period of time, but their numbers have dropped precipitously, as has England. So we are going to get through this and move forward. So.
And Carl, there is one member of the public with us. I wanted to call him out for his persistence, Mike Cody from OHA,
Okay.
who made it on the meeting, and just to see if there's public comment.
Mike, have you got anything you'd like to say?
I appreciate Davia putting me on the spot there. That's always nice. And working with her in our organization's been great too. And I know you're anxious to go, but I would, if I could, just mention as one of your successful applicants in the past, some of the comments I heard earlier, I really appreciated what Jane and Marette had to say. The project that you were talking about earlier is wonderful. Nothing about the merits of the project, just kind of the process thing. And it's kind of like, wow, there's an exception. If I had Meyer Grant come in with a bunch of money, could I get an exception too? Those are the questions you might get in the commission meeting and that. And so the other thing I might just offer is, as this group continues its great work, and you have a long-standing thing there, you got to figure out who's going to stick around for 4 years and who's going to re-up after that and all those fun things. Maybe this is a lifetime appointment, I don't know, but there are, and Kelly might be the expert to help you, Kelly and Chris and other folks on here. There's a number of well-established grant type cycle processes out there. And I would offer, if you like the OWEB process, I don't know if Kelly likes that or not, but as an applicant, it kind of gives you kind of a set system to work in. The dates and the forms get tweaked and changed and things like that, but having that consistency really helps for folks who are looking at big projects. And particularly as you're moving into larger scale projects, it takes a lot more planning, a lot more timing, a lot more partnership and cooperation and collaboration. And so having kind of a set process helps there. And with that, I just say thanks again to all of you for your work. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for sticking with us throughout the whole meeting. Okay, with that, I think we're done, and I really appreciate you guys participating and sticking with us while we got through our technical difficulties. And Davia, could you stick around for just a sec so we can talk a little bit? Or I'll just call you. I'll just call you on the phone. Okay. All right. Thank you all. It's nice seeing you all again. Look forward to October.
Ciao.